Hey everyone, it's John Heath here again for Milton Rose Learning with another Let's Learn lesson on the poem Ozymandias, an absolute classic of romantic poetry. So we're going to look at three key contextual points that you probably really need to know if you're going to write well on this poem. Then we'll have a little poetry reading, dare I say, if you can put it with my Brummy accent, and then we'll isolate and talk about probably 4 or 5 of the key poem annotations for this poem that you want to get into your anthology. Okay, so we're looking forward to this one. So let's have a nice start with context. Okay, and you can see Shelley there and a statue of Ozymandias that's been kind of destroyed by the ravages of time. Okay, so first off then, let's talk about what we would probably phrase as the impermanence of power. Okay, so the poem is kind of exploring how even the greatest rulers and the greatest empires, you know, from the Roman Empire to the Egyptian Empire and beyond, they all eventually crumble and they leave behind only ruins as a reminder of time's power. Time will always get you. It's not your friend, and it's definitely not Ozymandias' friend, and it will eat away at even the most powerful ruler and even the most powerful empire. And I think that's the core authorial intention in this text. Then we have a critique of pride and tyranny. So I think Ozymandias, who's a kind of pharaoh-like figure in the poem, he's very arrogant, and his arrogance is mocked by the broken statue. He builds this beautiful statue of himself, but it gets ravaged by by time, basically. So it shows that pride and tyranny cannot withstand time. Time is the master of all, and eventually it comes to get us all. You know, we all die, don't we? And then the last kind of contextual point you need to know is a distant voice and subtle critique. Shelley uses a very detached narrative voice to subtly criticise power and ambition and letting the ruins speak for themselves. He's kind of wagging his finger almost to any political figure who gets too big for their boots and kind of saying, you know, death and time come for us all. There's no escape for anybody. Nobody gets out of this alive, basically. So he has a very, very powerful message to powerful rulers there. Okay, now let's get a grip on the actual poem. It's quite a short poem, obviously a sonnet. So let's have a little kind of poetry reading, dare I say. Just to get a feel for the phonology and the sound of the poem. Poems are meant to be read out loud, so it's always nice to give it a run out. I met a traveller from an antique land who said, 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, a shattered kind of face like a stone head, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things. So he's describing the statue and the face of the statue which has now been destroyed. The hand that mocked them and the heart that fed, and on the pedestal of this massive statue, these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of kings, look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. So Ozymandias had this massive statue built of him, and that's the message that he wanted to convey to everybody. But however, it's all gone bad. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. And it ends with the symbolism of the sand. The sands, for me at least, are the sands of time that kind of eat away at you, you know, relentlessly, and you can never escape them until death. And Ozymandias failed to understand that with this massive statue, and the statue is now destroyed, and so is Ozymandias. Okay, so let's now look at just some of the key annotations. Now, this isn't exhaustive, but it provides you with a good starting point for your own kind of analysis of the poem. Okay, so let's have a nice look. First off, the opening lines, I met a traveller from an antique land. So it's a framing device. Shelley distances himself from the story. Okay, so he's saying that this story is relayed by a kind of traveller who you can kind of see in the image there, suggesting how all power fades and becomes legend over time. And by Shelley framing it as coming from somebody else, a traveller, it's more powerful, because if it came from Shelley directly and he's just bad-mouthing everyone in power, it loses its power. It just sounds like a rant. So he doesn't do that, and he uses a framing device in the first line, which is very clever. Also, the phrase antique land, it evokes ancient history, decay and forgotten empires. It sets the tone of transience, not even kind of the biggest empires in the world. They never last. Okay, so say the Roman Empire, the Egyptian Empire, they're all gone. Okay, they're absolutely all gone. And so nothing lasts. It's the theme of transience throughout the whole kind of text. Then we have imagery of ruin. Okay, so a very interesting image there. Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. So this is a massive statue of Ozymandias, which he ordered built. There's a juxtaposition: vast, meaning very big, but trunkless, meaning it's kind of lost. The statue's lost its kind of torso almost. So it shows broken grandeur. The statue is incomplete, and it mirrors the fall of power of Ozymandias. Okay, very symbolic there. Also, the stand in the desert, so the desert setting, that's a symbol of time's erosion as well, because I'm sure you probably know, but sand over time will erode. It's like a brush, and it will just brush away kind of stone. It will take centuries to do that, but it will erode. And so the desert setting itself is a bit of a metaphor. So nature outlasts human achievements, such as this big statue. Nothing lasts. Okay, and I think you kind of understand that motif now. Then irony and power. Okay, beautiful kind of pharaoh's sarcophagus there. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. That's what Ozymandias wants us to think. So it's an ironic command, because it's meant to boost his own power and hubris, his arrogant pride. But now only the ruins remain, so the message backfires across time, doesn't it? It's kind of, he thought he was the big man, and he's not, because his statue is destroyed and nobody remembers him or his empire. Hubris means, arrogant pride. That's a great word, and that quote really shows the arrogance of rulers. It serves as a critique of tyranny and overconfidence. Never get too big for your boots, because it doesn't matter if you're a president, a king, an emperor, we all will die. We all will kind of meet our end, and nothing remains, as we know. And then the last one, which is kind of what we've kind of repeated a few times here, is the inescapable passage of time. So the quote, nothing beside remains round the decay of that colossal wreck. So let's think, the consonants of colossal wreck, so it emphasizes total collapse. It echoes emptiness and destruction of even the biggest empires, as we know. Power versus time. Power is a lovely thing, I suppose, if you're in power, but it never lasts. You're in this human vessel, you're in this body which is extremely fragile and prone to kind of collapse. So power never wins against time. Empires fade, but time itself is eternal. Nature reclaims everything in the end. Okay, so a very profound poem, an absolute masterpiece, I've got to be honest, of romantic literature. But it makes you reflect on your own mortality, and makes us reflect on the nature of power, and how, even those in power today, they won't be there in a few years, and everything ends up getting destroyed. So hopefully you've really enjoyed that. You can tell I did. I'm a big fan of Ozymandias, an absolute masterpiece. But don't forget to hit the like, subscribe and tap the bell icon to never miss another Let's Learn video again. Hopefully that's given you a really good launch pad now to study Ozymandias. It really is a masterpiece. It's absolutely amazing. And it just remains to say then, thanks for listening. Hopefully you've had fun, and take care. We'll see you soon.